Hello and welcome to Multifamily Elevated. My name's Suzanne Hopson, and I am super excited to talk to you about vision, people, and execution, and how you can utilize this information to elevate you and your team and your experience in multifamily. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, giving you the latest and greatest news and content across our multifamily sector. So let's jump in. Enjoy this episode of Multifamily Elevated and enjoy the climb.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Elevated. We are really excited to have a very, I think, famous person in the room and joining me today to talk about lots of things multifamily. Welcome, Ronald. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to finally get to be on your podcast. I had you on mine. We've been planning this for such a long time, and now that it gets to come together, I'm really excited.
I am as well. And we have been talking for several years now, and our journeys have really taken some twists and some turns, and to really, really be found again, like together, same platform, and now same show. I'm excited too. I'm excited about the conversation and sharing that with our audience today. So let's just jump right in. I know we like to fly by the seat of our pants here. So I'm just going to throw something out there that's been on my mind and want to get your take on it, because I think it's a pretty big thing for our sales folks, our sales and leasing folks out in the field. So I've been talking to a lot of people about AI. Of course, that's just the conversation. And I don't even want to say AI because it's just AI. It's everywhere. But I do see the real positives of what it's adding to the sales process. And I also see how it's been negative in a way where, maybe people are afraid of it or don't know how to use it. And so you've been out there a lot more than I have. What are you seeing as you're out there working side by side with our sales folks? How are they approaching this, and how are they using it? I mean, tell us.
Yeah, I feel like our teams we have some that I've been talking to, people I've been interviewing are very pro, like they're like, Ronald, this changed my life, right? Like I didn't have to work weekends as a leasing agent anymore. Like it's all centralized. I can work Monday through Friday. Like I get time back in my day to go spend with my kids. And then I see at the opposite end, people are like, this is never going to work. That this is not, it's unknown and it's things like that. And just as soon as I learn it, it changes. And so I tend to take the approach, life is always changing, right? And so what you learn today is still going to be beneficial tomorrow. It's just going to be a different way, right? It's just a different model or things like that. And what I've come to really understand is that people don't even know what AI is, right? They think of it as, the chat bots, and they think of it, I'm like, well, automation is AI. Like that's in there, right? And I just tell people, it's just the next progression of the computer. And when you start to think about it like that, right? And that's so crazy for me to think back. I've been doing this for 11 years now, and I worked for a company when I first started in the industry that was so tech forward that the things that we're talking about today, we were doing back then, right? We had automation in our system setup, right? So if you went to sign your renewal, you hit select, our system automatically generated the lease for you and sent it out to you. I had to do nothing on my end because we had the workflows in place, right? And so I think for me, that's probably, I'm not scared of it. We rolled out revenue management in 2015. It was a new thing. So we were using BI dashboards and weekly reports from the BI dashboard in 2015. I remember even getting the BI dashboard, and I'm like, okay, let me put my budget into Excel and type in, what it is that I want, right? So the principles are still there, and it's becoming more relevant in every industry. I go to Taco Bell by my house. There's an AI at the speaker now. Literally, the human doesn't, the first pilot, the human, if you had a mobile order, the human took over, right? And they did it. Now the human doesn't take over. It pulls it up onto the screen and it does that. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. Then I went to the dentist the other week and they did the scan of my teeth. They uploaded it and, they looked at my teeth. The AI looked at my teeth and they could identify things like that. So it's becoming more and more. And I think like the fear is more that it's going to take my job than it is going to enhance my job. Right. And I have conversations like this all the time. Like, what are the parts of your job you hate? What can we do to automate it? You know, I get told people this all the time. They're always like, I hate writing things. I'm just not a good writer. I'm like, guess what? ChatGPT, they can help you out, right? You write it what you want, and then you give it the prompt to say whatever it is that you want, and then you proof it and you change some things around to make it sound like you. But now you have the skeleton of something that's well written, and it took you 2 seconds to do it versus sitting here 20 minutes, right? So you literally save 20 minutes by doing that. So finding ways to enhance it. And I'm like, maybe it's too much for you at work, right? Because we're already throwing a lot of things at you at work every day, right? Follow up with this person, do this, do that. So maybe it becomes the conversation of how can you start to use it in your personal life? I use my phone every day, like me and, um, my robot on my phone. I'm not going to say the name because they're always listening and then they light up. But she'll answer questions. She will summarize things when I'm researching and things like that. Because now I'm seeing, okay, this is how I'm using my personal life. Once I mastered the personal life, I started mastering it in my work life. If this is what it can do for me, I can't tell you how many times I go on and I'm like, here's the 5 ingredients that I have in my house. Pull me a recipe.
Ooh, that's a good idea. We all get stuck with that.
Or we'll be like, oh, we're gonna have Italian chicken tonight. So I'll say, give me some sides that go well with Italian chicken. And then it pulls up, the sides, and now the new model gives you 2 different options and it does all of that. So I started doing that. And then I'm like, oh, guess what? Now I can make easy recipes for social media for my residents. So finding ways. And I've always looked at, trends outside of the industry because we know they're going to come, right? And I'm still a firm believer, right, that self-service is coming. I think that we're going to start seeing more and more video tutorials. I go into my PMS system, I put a work order in as a resident. I get an email that says, hey, we noticed you put a work order in for a clogged dishwasher, or your garbage disposal needs reset. Would you like to try to do this yourself? I click yes, and then bam, with instance, I get a link to a video that says, here's a maintenance person from your community showing you how to reset your garbage disposal or what to look for in your clogged dishwasher. You go through the process. Then at the end of it says, were you successful in fixing the problem? I say no. The work order stays open. I say yes. The work order closes and we move on, right? And so now I have like this example. Now you don't have to come into my home. I can do it on my time. But if it doesn't work, then I know you're still there. I mean, I think we're starting to see, self-guided touring finally rise and all these things. And I think this is the next progression, especially as we start to see, more and more workloads put onto the maintenance team. I was talking to my friend the other day that, they got laid off. The company downsized and they were making cuts. And they were like, yeah, they also now have my maintenance person doing groundkeeping. So they're now the landscaper and the pool boy on top of everything else that they have to do. So it's easier to just, find 2 or 3 more maintenance people to add to it. But if we could find the way to take that workload off, Gen Z is going to do that. They're already doing it, right? Why not just put it in and track it? Why not be able to go back and find the data and say, oh, man, the nice thing is they might be looking at a, Kenmore dishwasher and yours is a GE. So there's a higher risk that they broke it because it's not the same or the frustration is there. So send them the one that you have into that workflow.
That was a great answer. And it was just chocked full of goodies. And I like the personal recipe thing just to, for a second, definitely going to use that and share with the hubs.
I'm seeing marketing people too, like get ChatGPT. Someone posted the other day about that their company got their first referral from ChatGPT. like that's now a marketing source that they figured out how to program ChatGPT, right? They made sure their settings were on, and they fed it the information and all of that. And that's the other thing I think people have to realize, right? The information is only as smart as you program it. You're always going to need to be there, right? We have to give it doesn't just make up information. It just can't pull information. So if something's wrong, you have to fix it. You have to test it. And it goes back to I was recently trying to do the action figure.
Yeah.
Prompt
Yeah, you did that, huh?
it. And I kept doing it. And it was like the photo, like the action figure of me was really like spot on, right? The blue eyes, I got to this thing. It was having trouble making my grande cup of venti cup at Starbucks. And then it had a Celsius, and then it like put the Starbucks logo on the Celsius, like can. So that was it. And even though I typed into the prompt what I wanted it to say, everything spelled correctly, it could not spell my last name. And I was like, please correct this spelling to this. And it spit it back out with the same and I was like, so I gave up. I didn't post it.
Yeah, I've had the same difficulties with certain things, and it's really the things that I want it to do everything. Like, please just do this all for me right now. And that's where it gets screwed up. And to your point, you've got to continue to work with it to produce, the best possible product, whatever that is that you're trying to produce. And so I agree with you on that. I do think that getting started and just practicing, great advice on the personal life first. Some companies aren't even allowing people to utilize it. So there's that whole thing. But if you do have a forward thinking company that is encouraging you to get started on this, just start. I love the thing that you said too about the communication piece. This is where I have found it really useful for sales. And that is, really customizing actually all of the communication that's going out through your system in a way that is quick. And I know that our salespeople, they struggle with this sometimes. One, they don't have time. It's not their favorite thing to do, like you said. They'd rather be talking or showing or really engaging with their prospects. And so this follow-up or automation on the communication side always looks a little weak to me. And so I have seen some really great impact on that side of it where people are utilizing it for communication. And, it's great. You can really detail and zone in on real specific things about your prospect too. And it'll challenge you to ask the right questions to close the deal, which I think is great. I've been using it a lot.
This is what's going to come. This is what's going to come next, right? So I've been having conversations with people, who work in tech and that kind of thing. And I'm like, hey, I need people to want to put the notes into the system, right? That's the first challenge. I want them to mark the tour. So what I really want to see, and I know it's coming, I know someone's going to do this. When I put in all of my notes, all of the information that I want, right? Your favorite foods, like all that personal information. Moving forward, when it's time for my follow-up, I want to be able to go in, set a template, and hit the AI, and it craft a follow-up based off whatever I select. So if I wanted, if I said, Ronald's favorite food is pizza, I wanted to craft a follow-up around pizza and the pizza places in the neighborhood that deliver to that apartment. And then, so again, I'm still in charge, right? I'm telling it which prompt I want it to do, but now I don't have to think about the message. I've done something for them. It's a personalized to them. Now I have a reason to put the notes in to the system. And I wanted to pull that.
Yeah, really.
I think that is going to happen. And I think when you go into a guest card, you're on a tour and it says, do you have a dog? And you say yes, it should pop up for me and say, get the dog's name, get the dog's breed. Like it should go through that prompt with me, because what I'm also seeing is more and more companies bringing more and more green leasing professionals in without training them. So let's set you down, watch your LMS, right? Watch the videos in there. And then you did your fair housing, you did your sexual harassment. Great. Pick up the phone, start calling. So I think, trust me, when I've talked to guests and, I've had people email me on the side about the podcast and they're just like, this is the only training I've gotten. Like your podcast is what I have out there. Right. And hard, and it's like this episode really resonated with me because my company doesn't provide that to me.
Well, I hear that about your podcast and what you're putting out there as well. So, Ronald, I definitely hear that. To your credit, you've really done an outstanding job of helping well, I want to say it's my favorite role, but it kind of is my favorite role. So, I just think it's been extremely helpful. And if you think about it, it's probably the least formal training that you could possibly have, which I also think is coming. Like some of the very formalized training that's an hour to 3 hours in length is going to go away. And I'm wondering how that's going to, really, I guess, materialize. I don't want to talk about that on this one. Not yet, but I do want to get into that because
Going to be things, right? And even now, right, the 30-minute podcast, that's slowly becoming a thing of the past almost, right? And so that's why when a couple months ago I had to reinvent what I was thinking, right? And so why I do have 30-minute conversations, when I have those conversations with other people, that's perfect, right? Because there's two people. Or when I do the recap of the shops, I think there's so much good nuggets in there but I said, what do I have to do to get better results for the people that don't have 30 minutes? That their commute is 10 minutes, right? And that's why I created that micro living edition that's every other week, 10 minutes, quick little snapshots of, this is what I'm seeing, or, you're only as good as your last impression, right? And those little things that you don't think about, or that you just need a refresher. And now you're a new leasing agent, or you're a manager, and you're like, I don't have time to train my person. Guess what? Now you have these 10-minute videos that we put out for free, right? It's not like we don't put them behind a firewall. We just share the information because we love the industry that much.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm sending out some snippets because that is consumable. And, you want to get what's in your head. You want to share it because sometimes it can make an effect, when you want to get it out there. And I love that, especially with how fast everything's moving. We have to be faster at everything that we do, including delivering information, important information. And the consumption side, let's talk about that for a second, because, I'm a little bit older and perhaps my brain's a little, I don't think it's tired. I don't feel older, but I will say that there's so much information out there that sometimes I get overwhelmed, and I am a research hound. Like I'm always digging up goodies, trying new things. But I don't know, are you finding that out there too as you're talking with people, that people are just a bit overwhelmed right now with the amount of information that's coming their way?
Yep. And not only are they overwhelmed, they are confused because sometimes the message contradicts each other, right? Like, and I hear this all the time. Well, I was told to do it this way, and now you're telling me to do it this way. And I'm just like, guess what? Leasing is subjective, right? And so you can try it different ways than what works for you. What you don't want to do though is take all the information and try everything at once. You want to break it down. And so like for me, when I go train, I have a full 2-day leasing course road. And when I go train, I say, I don't want you to go back and master all this right away. I don't want to set you up for failure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you green index cards. I'm going to give you red index cards. Green for things that you want to start doing, red for things you want to stop doing. Go back to that. Find 1 or 2 things from each card that you want to work on instantly, master it, then go back, pick 1 or 2 more things, master it, and go back. Because when you go in and you do everything all at once, that's when you fail. Because guess what? You're overwhelmed. You don't know what's working. Your brain shuts down instantly, right? I'm just going to go back to the old way because this is too hard. And I have to often explain this to leasing people when I talk to them too, like, hey, you do this to your prospect. Do you realize that you give them 5, 6, 7 choices? Now they're overwhelmed on top of the 5, 6, 7 choices at the other communities that they went to. So what we want to do, and what I want you to do is I want you to be different. I want you to find 1 or 2 apartments that meet their needs, hide those needs into them, and that's all you talk about. And before they leave the tour, I want you to say, Okay, so you saw 2 apartments. Did you like apartment 1 or apartment 2 better? Which one will you be taking? Once you do that, you stop talking about the other one. If they walk out the door because they need to think about it, you only going forward talk about that apartment that they chose. Just like going to the eye doctor, right? Is 1 or 2 better? Is 3 or 4, right?
Love it.
Thinking about just that one, so their brain doesn't get information overload.
Yeah, which leads me to another question because this came up. This was a client that actually asked me this question. And I have this is the way I've always done it response, but I made a commitment to follow up with it because I question now everything that I did, even just 5 years ago. Make sure that, I know there's some basics that never change, but there's a lot that has changed. And so the question was, should we populate all of our availability online?
Well, so there are 2 angles we can go from, right? I from a sales standpoint, I say no because it defeats the purpose of
What you're just saying.
right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I shopped a property. I got a text. This property only had 2 bedrooms. They didn't have any 1 bedrooms or 3. It was solely like a 2-bedroom community. I didn't know that, right? I wanted to see the handoff. So I said I was looking for a 1-bedroom. It said, "Oh, we don't have any 1-bedrooms, but here's all of our information about our 2 bedrooms." It gave me 3 options. And then same square footage and same price, just different location. So it defeated the whole purpose of that. So from a sales side, that's the hard part. From an operations side, it is becoming harder and harder to, there's lawsuits about market surveys and things like that. So when we don't populate all of the availability and all the public data is getting scrubbed, and that's now the decisions that we're making is off the public data. If you have 10 1-bedrooms, but you've only populated 3, that's public data. They don't know about the other 7. I often teach people too, though, like sometimes you have to read in between the lines, right? Like if they only had 3 and you get a market survey from public data back that says 97% occupied, but yet they're offering 2 months free in a concession, they're not populating all of their information, which again is okay. The problem is becoming frustrating for the prospect because it's not consistent from property management company to property management company.
It must drive them nuts. I mean, if you think about it from that perspective, even if they're not shopping 5 like they did in the olden days, and they're down now to like the top 2 or 3, it's still overwhelming. Yeah, it's overwhelming, especially if it's all different. You're right. Because they don't know. They don't know that there's 3 different, major softwares. They don't know that there's, any of that going on. It's just different and inconsistent. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And it's pretty much, I've now said there's really no one size fits all to that question, because really you have to look at it holistically on what could be going wrong with that community at that time. Is it really people? Is it product? Is it the promotion? What is it really? And oftentimes, and this is like just being in this for 35 plus years, it's usually people or it's product. Those are like the top 2. We have so many leads coming in now. I don't even know how a salesperson can deal with all of these leads. It's just overwhelming. Hopefully the top of the funnel is getting refined, and we're starting to combat that. I'm not seeing that with my clients, but that's why they want me to help them. I think we've got some issues.
Job security.
Yeah, well, it's real too. And so what are you finding with that? And just I don't know, the day in the life of a salesperson today versus even just a couple of years ago. What are some of the key things that you're noticing are really, really different?
So I'm noticing more of the nurturing side of the AI. That's, the leads aren't even hitting my dashboard until they book a tour. And I think like when you roll out that type of technology, it's very important to stress, like you can still go find that and you still can add things, right? And so that's the biggest one. And I see the biggest struggle is back when we had to respond to every single lead, we were in the process, right? We knew like where you were in the process. Like I knew where you were when you came in, I had that information. Where I'm seeing the biggest struggle for a leasing agent is that AI handoff, right? So they might have asked the questions on the chat bot. It's in the guest card. It's, it's there, but we're not, when we see the appointment, we're just up. Suzanne's here for an appointment today. So let me just go in and ask those questions instead of doing our due diligence and reading the guest card. And I remember when I first started, I don't know about you, but the guest card had to go in order from like first contact to last, right? And you could flip through and you could tell the whole story of the prospect's journey in the big, blue folders that were like two-pronged. Yeah, right. Really did. The conversation logs, all of those things, right? So those things are missing, which is then creating friction because now the prospect is like, why am I telling you this information? I already put it into the system. Did not read, right? So there's
three times.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I see that. I think we're also seeing less and less phone calls to offices because guess what? They don't need to call us. It's crazy to think that even 10 years ago, everything on the website said, call for details, right? And ironically, we probably had a higher phone average pickup then.
Yeah.
Now I feel again the phone and people are scared of the phone. And I think that's a couple different reasons, right? I think Gen Z and Gen X aren't big phone people and to have to answer the phone is like freaks them out and we're not providing the training for that. So I think like those are some of the big differences and what to do with my free time, right? I think that's now that we've taken some of this stuff off that they don't like. And one of my guests, when Tyler Marker was on, he talked about how he rolled out a centralized leasing. And the thing that really stuck with me from him was I just explained to the people, we're doing the FedEx model, right? Automate the process, humanize the experience.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't that a great way of putting it? Yeah, he's one of my favorites.
That really stood out to me. And that's how I started to, kind of come. And I was reading Unreasonable Hospitality, and they said, and the hook of it, right, that really like sold it for me was customer service is black and white and hospitality is the color. And so like now I explained that to leasing agents. Like I was like, customer service is your chatbot, right? Black and white. If it doesn't know the answer, it gets passed on. When it comes to you, now you get to create this experience and this magic moment that adds the color to their journey. And I try to like instill that all the time. And I feel like it falls on deaf ears a lot of time is like every interaction you have with a prospect, with the resident should add value to their journey.
That's what we do. I mean, that's really what we do. We add value and that makes it worth living at our communities, right? That's the real clincher. Yeah. So I lovingly put this title on our on our podcast today, which is Ronald is Rogue. And I always think of you like that. Like you're always pushing the envelope. You're always like breaking through the barrier of whatever's got us all held back. What are you up to these days? What are you doing next? What's your next, if you can share, what's your next move? What do you got cooking up there?
Well, it's so funny that you've given me as that I'm speaking at Apartmentalize, and the topic I'm speaking on the trade show floor is unapologetic innovators, wild ideas for rebels, dreamers, and early adopters.
I love it. Perfect. That's great.
So, I think like for me, I am always looking for ways to break down barriers. I hate when things are a one-way street, and I feel a lot of times things are a one-way street in the ways that we do things. So anytime that I can go in and disrupt a space, ruffle some feathers, get some people talking, may not always be good, and that's okay. And I think like, for me, I feel confident in doing those types of things because I also feel that my brand is so strong, like my personal brand. And like when people associate me to things, I feel like I'm very blessed in the aspect that I'm not associated to companies. like, or to things like I'm associated to Ronald Harrington, Ruined with Ronald, who is this authentic person. And I hear that all the time, right? People say, Ronald, you're just so authentic. And I'm like, there's other ways to be. Like, that just sounds like way too much work, right? I'm like, no, like, this is what you get, right? And I don't want to dwell on the past. I don't want to, like, I want to make things better. I want to be a positive influence. And that's the type of things that I'm going to put out because that's what's going to get people attracted to me in that opportunity, right? And to come up and, have it, like I told you, like on my podcast, you're lucky if you get questions in advance, and like we hit record, and if we stumble over something we have to improvise, right? Because that's what we do in leasing. And I think for me that's also that theater background coming in, but that is what I built my brand on, and building that passion to helping people no matter where they are in their journey and things like that. And that's something that I'm definitely continuing to do.
Well, I love it. And you'll continue to blaze through our multifamily space and continue to break down those barriers and create new opportunities for people of all ages. And, in all walks of life, I think that's one of the things I love most about you is your trailblazer. I like people that are rebels with a cause. So
I
we'll
remember
get
like
stuff.
a couple years ago. I remember that those conversations, right? We were interviewing each other for a job, right? Essentially, and it was definitely I was very shy then and quiet and uncertain. Uh,
Uncertain. Hmm. Yeah.
not like of my skill set. That never was, but my capability to achieve what everyone else thought I could achieve. And I let that fear hold me back from things that I didn't. And my friend that I'm speaking with on the trade show floor, she was the chair one year of the Next Gen committee, and she tells the story about me. She's like, I just remember this one time we had our first meeting in person, and we were going around the table, and you were like, "Hi, can I say something?" And you're like. And they're like, yeah. And you're like, so I knew, but I do have some ideas that might maybe want to help if you want to listen. And like, and then you just started to like list off all these things. You're like, I think we need to do this for the 20 in their 20s, and I think we need to take this out. And like, then you put together this forensic file of like how we're going to improve the application page by page. And she's like, and that's when I knew like you needed someone in your corner to believe in you, and you didn't believe in yourself. And but also for that person to say, mm, I may have not have done it that way, but the way you did it is okay. And this is why I would have done it differently, or I would have handled that situation. And I'm sure I have a lot of people in my life that are probably like, I wish that I did not build him up like that much now because he's is unstoppable. And I never thought that day would come.
Well, I know we've talked about this, and you're right. It's a startling difference, but that is so inspiring, and I'm glad that you shared that because people who know you now might not know that about your story. And that's what I call road rash. That's some of the experiences that shape who you are, and it takes you one way or the other in life. It either beats you down, and you let it beat you down, or you take all of that internal feedback and external feedback, and you make it work, and you build on that, and you come into your own. And I think that's really what we're seeing now. That's really it's really great. And I don't even try to think about where you're going to be in 5 years. I'm just going to
Neither.
watch and just
Wherever
cheer
you,
cheer
wherever
you.
you know the the wind takes me. I'm one of those like, are you relocatable? Can you do this? Will you go here? And I'm like, you want me on a plane tonight at 7 o'clock? Okay, so it's 4 o'clock. So if I let me just throw some clothes in a bag, I'll figure it out when I get there, right? I can be at the airport by 5:30. Catch the plane will be great. And I think like that passion is what I hope to see a resurgence of in multifamily in the coming years. I feel like we kind of lost our light a little bit. I think we got overwhelmed as an industry, and we saw the passionate people kind of go off into retirement, change careers, and we haven't really lit the fire and that passion into the next generation just yet. But as we know, right, this is not one that you grow up wanting to go into, right? You find it. And once you find it and you have the right people in your corner, you're hooked for life.
So true. I know you're famous and all, but can you tell everybody the best way to get a hold of you if they want to pick your brain or talk to you about something? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So the best way to get a hold of me is either via LinkedIn, Ronald Harrington. You'll see Rooms with Ronald as the background, things like that. Or you can email me at roomswithronald@gmail.com. I am constantly, in between my full-time job, taking breaks, making sure I stay energized myself, but responding to people also fills my cup in that way. And definitely happy to have any type of conversation and help in any way that is possibly that you need.
Well, I just want to thank you personally as your friend, but just also as a person in this industry, and someone that is just cheering you on, but also learns from you as well. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all that wisdom with our audience. Thank you. All right. Take care, everybody. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Multifamily Elevated, where we hope that you are inspired and ready to go, elevated to take on your next challenge in multifamily. So if you liked this episode, please subscribe, like, comment, and of course, share with your network. And don't forget that this was brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network, that is also sharing the latest and greatest in trends, ideas, and content across our multifamily space. Until next time, keep elevating, and we'll talk soon.